Well, welcome in our panel today. John Mills is a retired U.S. Army colonel and a former director of cybersecurity policy at the Department of Defense. Good morning to you. And Joe Truzman is an editor and senior research analyst at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Long War Journal. Good to see both of you here. Colonel, I got to start with you on this. How encouraging is it, this announcement from President Trump, this potential 60-day ceasefire, where that could eventually lead? But also, Colonel, what happens during a ceasefire, not just only with the IDF that's in that area, but also with Hamas? What happens in that amount of time?
Well, thank you, Sean. Well, there's not a whole lot left of Hamas. I'm sure, because this normally happens, there's going to be tactical engagements on the ground as troops in contact see situations that are concerning, that are dangerous, that are lethal, and they take action. So there's probably still going to be some skirmishing going on even during this ceasefire. But Israel currently occupies about 70% of the Gaza Strip. This is just kind of a final closing chapter before the Gaza Strip is reset for a new and different future.
Yeah, as we know, you got to have two parties come to the table and agree for a ceasefire to actually take place. Right. And even the New York Times is noting that there's major hesitancy on behalf of Hamas, writing this. Hamas has said it will only release all the remaining Israeli hostages if Israel's military fully withdraws from Gaza, and there's a guaranteed end to the war. Israel, for its part, has insisted that Hamas must surrender, disarm, and send its leaders in Gaza into exile. So, Joe, realistically here, do we see a ceasefire happening?
It's a very good question. And first of all, of course, thank you for having me on. I think so. Right now, I think Hamas is severely degraded, more than a year and a half of war. However, I think difficult decisions are going to be made if this ceasefire is declared. I think the Israelis, they've already said what their objectives are, what their war goals are, namely, as you said, disarm Hamas, exile their leaders, and of course, getting back all the hostages. However, I don't think the only problem I think the Israelis are going to run into, the obstacle here, is disarming Hamas. Hamas has said that they will not disarm and they will not leave. And everything on the ground, despite what I've seen, what I've observed regarding Hamas's, the degradation of Hamas, is that they're not going to leave. I actually expect them to continue operating in the Gaza Strip after this war, which is unfortunate for the Israelis. But I think this is what's going to happen at the end of the day here.
Yeah, I'm just reading some of the statements that from one of the a Hamas official that they're quoted. This Hamas official says they're ready and serious regarding reaching an agreement, but again, no commitment to the ceasefire deal. So we'll see what happens with that meeting. I want to pivot now, if we can, to the war between Russia and Ukraine, Colonel, in what seems like a major setback for Ukraine. The Pentagon now pulling back some of the weapons that they previously pledged to send over. In fact, you see this on your screen. A Politico article states this: the decision was driven by the Pentagon's policy chief, Elbridge Colby, and was made after a review of Pentagon munition stockpiles, leading to concerns that the total number of artillery rounds, air defense missiles, and precision munitions was sinking, according to three people familiar with the issue. And here's how a member of Ukraine's Defense Committee reacted to the news. Watch.
This decision is certainly very unpleasant for us. It's painful, and against the background of the terrorist attacks which Russia commits against Ukraine, against peaceful towns, cities, villages, citizens of Ukraine that die almost every day from such terrorist attacks. It's a very unpleasant situation. I think that our diplomats in the president's office, as well as the president himself, will talk to the American side, and let's hope that this situation will be resolved.
So, Colonel, President Trump obviously handling this a little differently. The Pentagon handling this situation differently than the previous administration. How would you categorize this? Is this a strategic move by the United States of not sending over munitions and weapons that are needed for Ukraine?
Well, thank you, Sean. I'm not behind the veil. I'm not sitting in these meetings, but I actually have gone through a number of these reviews. We call them war reserve stockage levels of critical munitions and supplies. We do it all the time during the war on terror. We had to do that on a number of occasions. I think this is just a realistic assessment by Bridge Colby, very wise review of what's going on. And you look at the war reserve, and the previous administration or Penn couldn't care less about war reserve stockages of critical munitions. And a part of it's about the Patriot. The reality of the Patriot missile system, which has proven to be very effective. The reality is our defense industrial base, despite a number of years of lecturing and finger wagging by the previous administration, really hasn't built up. Now it's beginning to under the Trump administration, but we have critical stockage levels that when they go below that gets a lot of attention and hard decisions have to be made. I think that's really what was happening here.
All right. Appreciate your analysis, gentlemen. Colonel John Mills, Joe Truzman, thanks so much for coming on today.